Hey folks, Seth Leibson here. It's that time of year again. Guns Etc. huge anniversary event. This year it's on Saturday, October 24th only. There'll be tons of giveaways and one-day only discounts in the store. Over the years, this event has turned into a gathering of folks who love America and the right to bear arms. As you know, our world may dramatically change on November 3rd. Can you imagine what a Biden-Harris administration will do to the Second Amendment then? If you're concerned about that, make sure you visit Guns Etc. on Saturday, October 24th. For more information, go to gunsetcetera.com. And if you like these monologues, please subscribe to 960 The Patriot's YouTube channel. Welcome back. Friday, October 30th, 2020. This is interesting, I think. Now, Peggy Noonan writes in the Wall Street Journal, quote, "Of the two presidential candidates, Joe Biden is more normal, and God knows that has appeal. But normal isn't normalcy. We'll never return to political normalcy again. We won't wake up November 4th and say, wow, things are sturdy and placid again like they should be. We're in an age of drama and extremes," she continues. "There are too many ways to avoid the problems of being alive and the problems of your life through politics now. The political tribe is the only family a lot of people have, the only religion they have too. And as government has taken up more space in our lives, a weird attentiveness has come to feel not like neurosis, but like necessity," close quote. I call this the parallax view. A parallax view is a viewed perspective caused by a change in the observer's line of sight towards a steady or stationary object. In other words, an object seems to change its size or place based not on movement of itself, but on the movement of the viewer. Peggy Noonan, of course, was one of the celebrated speechwriters for President Ronald Reagan. What's interesting to me is how much of a break with tradition, one might even say normalcy, Ronald Reagan himself was. He was condemned as not smart. He was condemned as too far right-wing. He was condemned as a dangerous saber rattler. He was condemned for having simplistic and harmful economic policies. He was challenged by the mainstream of the Republican Party his whole career and challenged it back in return. He didn't side with the traditional part of the party, the Rockefellers and Romneys and Fords and Bushes. He ran against them. He ran against them in the Republican primary for governor in 1996. He stood against them in his campaign for Barry Goldwater 2 years prior. He ran against a sitting incumbent Republican president in 1976, and of course in 1980 he ran against the likes of George H.W. Bush, Bob Dole, and Howard Baker. His coalition of Catholic Democrats and Protestant evangelicals was new and the cause of great worry. And he created, by dint of his efforts, policies and speeches not only a challenge to the Republican Party, the party he challenged and beat, but something like an elite consensus about what policies should be deployed in defense, international relations, and domestic policy. He took a wounded nation from the upheaval of the 1960s and 1970s and salved those wounds. George Will wrote of his presidency, "He was the steadying captain of our clipper ship. He calmed the passengers and the sea." So to heck with getting used to failure, or getting used to decadence, or getting used to stagnation, or getting used to mediocrity, or getting used to a sweeping cultural leftism and thinking it's just normal. That's what Donald Trump brought to the presidency, not getting used to that anymore. To heck with all of that. And he took on institutions we never took on before. Institutions we weren't supposed to take on, because they were in charge, don't you know? Or thought they were, and told us they were. I'm talking first about the major media, and I'm talking about institutions of higher education, and of course elementary and secondary schools too. I'm talking about individuals, movements, and institutions dedicated to race talk, racialism, and race hucksterism. The Bushes and McCains would never take any of these or this on. Romney did one worse and caved to, genuflected before it all. Whether Ronald Reagan created a new normal or just looked at the normal and said, enough, I don't know. But America rewarded his work, his effort, his accomplishments. They reelected him, and they continue to honor and esteem him. It's hard to recall with all the praise he now summons, how challenged and criticized he was on the way to getting there. What Donald Trump has taken on is the same as what Reagan took on, what we took and resigned ourselves to getting used to, a certain state of play, a certain expected case of things. But what Reagan and Trump have both shown is that such commonplaces, loosely summed up as liberal leftist dominance everywhere, they don't have to be accepted and are in fact not healthy for us, our children, or other living things, if I can borrow from a once popular bumper sticker. None of it is healthy, but it is amazingly settled wisdom, commonplace. What is the none of it I'm speaking of? That we should not protect our borders, that while we can't seem to get right with our veterans or others in poverty here, we should give illegal immigrants free health care and education, but also don't call them illegal, call them something else, perhaps undocumented, to make it more tolerable. Eliminating private health insurance, all private health insurance, over several trillion dollars in industry affecting a vast majority of Americans. That the second most popular Democrat running for president and the most popular with our youth is an avowed socialist, and that avowed socialists sit in Congress and receive the countenance and promotion of glossy and elite publications. That there is no flinching, much less pause or moral pain over an abortion regime that permits the practice up to and until, and in some cases even after a child is born. That using race, only certain races, to convey governmental benefits and requiring the same of private institutions, from education to industry, hiring and promotions, is of course not only permissible but actually just. That making currently illegal and dangerous drugs legal and more accessible is not only considered criminal reform but healthy. That supporting those who kneel rather than stand for the national anthem as the true patriots, that invoking, using, and sharing the stage with Louis Farrakhan is just fine and dandy. That making up sexual assault claims about nominees to the Supreme Court to prevent them from being put on the court is now just what to expect, because that is the truly just thing to do. That doing business with and helping cover up civilizational abuse in countries that practice it is just good business and good international relations, is indeed the road to peace. That censorship of the very views just stated above is of course appropriate. But challenging all those things, that's what disturbs what Peggy Noonan calls sturdiness and placidity. I suppose in a certain sense, yes. Treating a disease requires disturbing things. If surgery, you have to cut. If by prescription drugs, you have to fight an ailment or bacteria or virus and you'll stir things up. But ill health is no more to be seen as placid and sturdy for a body as it is for a body politic. Neuroses is not normalcy. Those are the things Ronald Reagan challenged. Those are the things Donald Trump challenged. What Reagan did not do by opposing our ills was reestablish a new normal or a new common. And I don't know if Donald Trump can either. Perhaps the best we can hope for is remission from ills of our body politic. But maybe not a permanent remission. But to confuse all I said above as the stability and placidity of a society is not a good thing, but, as I say, a confusion, a parallax view. Peggy Noonan is right about one part of her analysis, though. The political tribe is the only family a lot of people have, the only religion they have as well. This is not a good thing either, and it's particularly true on the left because they cling to the views above as if it is truth on high, moral and political and cultural certainty and right thinking. And the challenge to that church is the challenge of apostasy, to be treated just as such. I think C.S. Lewis had it right, though, when he wrote, quote, "A sick society must think much about politics, as a sick man must think about his digestion. To ignore the subject may be fatal cowardice for the one as for the other, but if either comes to regard it as the natural food of the mind, if either forgets that we think of things like this only in order to be able to think of something else, then what was undertaken for the sake of health has become itself a new and deadly disease." close quote. But the irony is when you stop and think about what will finally make the left happy, what will satiate its appetite. When you look at all they have and all they have taken, you marvel that there is any appetite still left. Unless, of course, you see a remnant of a challenge to it. And that is what conservatism has become and should be. That is what Donald Trump is. That was what Ronald Reagan was. A challenge to the left like none other in a president or a presidential candidate. And the movements they created were not deviations from what should be normal. They were calls to challenge what was abnormal. Opposing the things I said above should be common sense, should be the normal. Giving up that fight and reinstitutionalizing them or strengthening them should not be. It puts me in mind of an important and perhaps lost concept. The concept is called truth to power, telling truth to power. A lot of us have heard it. It's become corrupted, though. It doesn't mean we should just challenge any and all power. It means, by its very predicate, that we should challenge power based on lies and falsity. And thus we return to the scientist, the truth teller from Chernobyl, who asked, what is the cost of lies? It's not that we'll mistake them for the truth. The real danger, that if we hear enough lies, then we no longer recognize the truth of all. Some of us get it. Some of us don't. And the election next week will reveal which side gets it and doesn't, and which side is stronger. I'm Seth Leibson. We'll be right back.